Control your blood pressure. 4 nuts that help and 4 to avoid. Have you ever felt that sudden tightness in your chest? That pounding in your temples that seems to echo with each heartbeat? Or maybe you've stared at that blood pressure monitor in disbelief as the numbers climb higher and higher, wondering if this is just a bad reading or your new reality. I know that feeling all too well from working with thousands of clients battling hypertension. That constant worry becomes your shadow, following you everywhere. You start avoiding the foods you love, canceling plans with friends because you're afraid the restaurant won't have options for you, or worse, skipping your grandchild's soccer game because you're scared of what might happen if your pressure spikes while you're cheering from the sidelines. And let's be honest, those generic recommendations from your doctor's quick 15-minute appointment just aren't cutting it anymore. Watch your salt, lose some weight, take your medication, as if you haven't been trying that for years. After helping people transform their blood pressure naturally for over a decade, I've discovered that some of the most powerful solutions are hiding in plain sight in your pantry. Today, I'm going to share something revolutionary that most cardiologists never mention. The 4 specific nuts that can dramatically lower your blood pressure naturally, and the 4 others that might actually be making your condition worse. Imagine being able to enjoy family gatherings without constantly checking if you're feeling okay, traveling without packing an emergency kit of medications, or simply waking up with that heaviness in your chest that reminds you of your condition. This isn't just another empty promise, it's a science-backed approach that you can implement today with foods that are probably already in your kitchen. So stay with me until the end, because this might be the most important information you'll hear this year for taking back control of your cardiovascular health. Before we dive in, I'd love to hear about your experience with high blood pressure. Has it changed how you live your life? Drop a comment below sharing any foods that have helped you manage your numbers, or let me know if you're struggling to find natural solutions that work. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you never miss our weekly tips for natural heart health management. Let's get right into it with the first blood pressure-friendly nut, walnuts. These brain-shaped powerhouses are among the most studied nuts for cardiovascular health, and for good reason. When I first started coaching Sarah, a 62-year-old grandmother whose blood pressure regularly hit 170/95, she was taking 3 different medications with side effects that left her dizzy and constantly fatigued. We introduced just a handful of walnuts into her daily routine, and within 6 weeks, her doctor was able to reduce one of her medications. Why? Because walnuts are one of the only nuts that contain significant amounts of alpha-linolenic acid, an omega-3 fatty acid that helps your blood vessels stay flexible and responsive. When your arteries can dilate and contract properly, your heart doesn't have to work as hard to pump blood through your body. The research from Loma Linda University found that people who consumed about 28 grams of walnuts daily for 6 months saw an average reduction of 4.8 millimeters Hg in their systolic pressure. That might not sound dramatic, but according to the American Heart Association, a reduction of just 5 millimeters Hg in systolic blood pressure results in a 14% decreased risk of stroke and a 9% decreased risk of heart disease. The key is consistency, not quantity. You don't need to overhaul your entire diet overnight. Many of my clients find success by simply replacing their mid-afternoon processed snack with a small palmful of walnuts. The fat content helps you feel satisfied longer, which naturally helps with weight management, another crucial factor in blood pressure control. One question I get all the time is, won't eating nuts make me gain weight because they're high in calories? This is a common misconception. The research actually shows the opposite. A study in the Journal of the American Heart Association found that people who regularly consumed nuts were less likely to develop obesity than those who avoided them. The fiber, protein, and healthy fats in nuts like walnuts create a perfect trifecta that helps regulate appetite and blood sugar levels, preventing the crashes that lead to unhealthy cravings later in the day. If you're concerned about calories, start with just 5 to 6 walnut halves daily, and make sure they're raw or dry roasted without added oils or salt. The processing and additives in commercially flavored nuts can completely negate their health benefits.
Next on our list is pistachios, which might be surprising to some of you because they're often sold salted in stores. However, in their natural unsalted state, pistachios are one of the most powerful nuts for blood pressure management. They contain more potassium per serving than most other nuts, providing nearly 8% of your daily needs in just a 1-ounce portion. Potassium acts as a natural diuretic, helping your body flush out excess sodium and water that contribute to high blood pressure. This is exactly how many prescription diuretics work, but without the potential side effects like increased blood sugar or elevated cholesterol that can accompany medication. When Robert, a 57-year-old client with stubborn hypertension that wouldn't budge below 160/90 despite being on 2 medications, started incorporating a 1/4 cup of unsalted pistachios into his daily diet, we saw his systolic pressure drop by 7 points in just 4 weeks. What makes pistachios particularly effective is their unique combination of L-arginine, an amino acid that your body uses to make nitric oxide, which relaxes blood vessels, along with their impressive lutein and zeaxanthin content. These antioxidants help prevent the oxidation of LDL cholesterol that can lead to plaque buildup in your arteries. One particularly interesting study published in the journal Hypertension found that people with high cholesterol who ate about 1.5 ounces of pistachios daily for 4 weeks experienced a significant reduction in vascular constriction during stress tests compared to those who didn't consume pistachios. This is crucial because for many people with hypertension, stress is a major trigger for dangerous spikes in blood pressure. The fiber in pistachios also plays a key role with about 3 grams per serving, helping to create a feeling of fullness that naturally limits overeating at meals. Many of my clients find that eating a small handful of pistachios about 30 minutes before a meal helps them consume fewer calories overall without feeling deprived. I recommend buying pistachios in their shells rather than pre-shelled. The act of opening each nut slows down your consumption, naturally limiting portion size. Plus, the visual cue of the empty shells helps you see exactly how much you've eaten. One common question is whether roasted pistachios are as beneficial as raw ones. The research suggests that light roasting doesn't significantly diminish the nut's cardiovascular benefits, so choose whichever you prefer as long as they're unsalted. I want to take a moment to ask you something personal. When was the last time someone actually listened to your concerns about living with high blood pressure? Not just the numbers on your chart, but how it feels to navigate life with this invisible condition day after day. Many of my clients tell me privately how isolated they feel, like no one truly understands the constant weight they carry, that silent fear that accompanies every heartbeat. If this resonates with you, I'd really love to hear your experience in the comments below. It could be as simple as, I've been battling hypertension for X years, and what troubles me most is your biggest concern. Sharing your story not only helps me create more relevant content for you, but also shows others watching that they aren't alone in this struggle. Sometimes just knowing someone else is experiencing the same challenges brings tremendous relief. And who knows, your experience might be exactly what someone else needed to read today to find hope. Now, let's continue our conversation about how we can transform this reality together. The third blood pressure-friendly nut on our list is almonds, which have been part of the heart-healthy Mediterranean diet for centuries. Unlike many of the quick fix solutions you might see advertised, almonds work through multiple pathways to gradually improve your cardiovascular health. They're particularly rich in magnesium, providing about 20% of your daily needs in just a 1/4 cup. Magnesium deficiency is incredibly common in the United States, with some estimates suggesting that up to 75% of Americans don't get enough of this crucial mineral. This is particularly problematic for blood pressure because magnesium helps regulate the enzymes that control the constriction and dilation of your blood vessels. It also helps maintain the proper balance of calcium in your heart cells, preventing the excessive contractions that can lead to hypertension and arrhythmias. When Diane, a 65-year-old client with resistant hypertension, added a 1/4 cup of almonds to her daily routine, she was able to reduce her evening dose of medication within just 3 months, under her doctor's supervision, of course. Her success wasn't just due to the magnesium, however. Almonds also provide a healthy dose of vitamin E, with 1 serving providing about 40% of your daily requirements. This powerful antioxidant helps prevent the oxidative damage to your blood vessel walls that can trigger inflammation and narrowing over time.
A systematic review published in the Journal of Nutrition found that regular almond consumption was associated with reduced blood pressure in multiple randomized controlled trials, the gold standard of scientific research. What surprised many researchers was that the benefits were seen even without significant weight loss, suggesting that almonds have direct effects on vascular function beyond just helping with weight management. I've found with my clients that the key to success with almonds is preparation. Unlike walnuts or pistachios, almonds can be a bit bland on their own, which is why many people opt for the heavily salted or flavored varieties that can actually worsen hypertension. I recommend soaking raw almonds overnight in filtered water, which not only improves their digestibility, but also enhances their slightly sweet natural flavor. After soaking, you can drain them and keep them refrigerated for up to 3 days. Some of my clients like to add a sprinkle of cinnamon, which not only adds flavor without sodium, but also has its own blood pressure lowering properties. If you're wondering about almond butter as an alternative, it can be a good option, but you need to be vigilant about the ingredients. Many commercial almond butters contain added oils, sugars, and salt that can negate their cardiovascular benefits. Look for brands that list only almonds on the ingredient label, or better yet, make your own at home in a food processor. The fourth and final nut on our blood pressure-friendly list is flaxseed, which is technically a seed but shares many nutritional properties with nuts. Flax seeds are unique in that they contain lignans, plant compounds that can help reduce blood pressure through their antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. A meta-analysis of 15 studies found that flaxseed consumption resulted in significant reductions in both systolic and diastolic blood pressure, with the benefits being even more pronounced in those who consumed flaxseed for longer than 12 weeks. This speaks to an important truth that I emphasize with all my clients. Natural approaches to blood pressure management aren't quick fixes, but they create sustainable, long-term improvements without the side effects that often accompany prescription medications. Tom, a 70-year-old client who'd been on blood pressure medication for over 2 decades, was able to reduce his dosage by half after incorporating ground flaxseed into his daily routine for 6 months. What makes flaxseed particularly effective is its incredible omega-3 fatty acid content, which helps reduce the inflammation that can stiffen blood vessels and raise blood pressure. Just 2 tablespoons provide about 3.5 grams of alpha-linolenic acid, the plant form of omega-3s. While this isn't as readily absorbed as the omega-3s found in fatty fish, it's still a powerful tool for those who don't regularly consume seafood. Flax seeds are also one of the richest plant sources of fiber, with those same 2 tablespoons providing about 4 grams. This soluble fiber acts like a sponge in your digestive system, binding to cholesterol and preventing it from being absorbed into your bloodstream. Over time, this helps reduce the plaque buildup that can narrow arteries and force your heart to pump harder. The most common question I receive about flaxseed is how to incorporate it into the diet. Unlike the other nuts on our list, flax seeds need to be ground to release their nutritional benefits, as the whole seeds will pass through your digestive system undigested. You can purchase pre-ground flaxseed, often labeled as flaxseed meal, but I recommend buying whole seeds and grinding them yourself in a coffee grinder just before use. This preserves the delicate omega-3 fatty acids that can oxidize quickly once the seed is ground. Ground flaxseed can be sprinkled on oatmeal or yogurt, blended into smoothies, or used as an egg substitute in baking. 1 tablespoon ground flaxseed mixed with 3 tablespoons water equals 1 egg. One caution with flaxseed: it's important to increase your water intake when adding it to your diet, as the high fiber content can cause digestive discomfort if not accompanied by adequate hydration. Now that we've covered the 4 nuts that can help lower your blood pressure, let's talk about the 4 you might want to avoid if you're managing hypertension. The first is salted peanuts, which are perhaps the most widely consumed nut in the United States. While peanuts themselves aren't inherently bad for blood pressure, in fact, unsalted peanuts contain resveratrol, the same heart-healthy compound found in red wine, the way they're typically processed and consumed makes them problematic for people with hypertension. A single ounce of salted peanuts can contain upwards of 230 milligrams of sodium, which is about 10% of the maximum daily intake recommended by the American Heart Association for people with high blood pressure.
This might not seem like much, but the reality is that most people don't stop at a single ounce, and the sodium quickly adds up. Factor in that most people eat salted peanuts as a snack alongside other salty foods or beverages, and you have a recipe for blood pressure spikes. I had a client, Michael, who couldn't understand why his blood pressure would rise dramatically every evening despite taking his medication as prescribed and following most of his doctor's recommendations. When we did a detailed food journal, we discovered he was consuming nearly 8 ounces of salted peanuts while watching sports several nights a week, effectively ingesting almost his entire day's worth of sodium in a single sitting. Within 2 weeks of switching to unsalted almonds, his evening blood pressure readings normalized. If you absolutely love peanuts, I recommend buying them raw and dry roasting them yourself without salt, or look for specifically labeled unsalted varieties. You can add flavor with spices like paprika, cinnamon, or curry powder, which not only avoid sodium, but may have their own blood pressure-lowering properties.
The second nut to approach with caution is the macadamia nut. While macadamias have gained popularity due to their creamy texture and rich flavor, they present several challenges for those managing hypertension. First, they're among the highest in calories and fat of all nuts, with 1 ounce containing about 200 calories and 22 grams of fat. This can contribute to weight gain if not carefully portioned, and excess weight is one of the most significant controllable risk factors for high blood pressure. Each pound of excess weight puts additional strain on your heart and blood vessels. Second, the fat profile of macadamias, while mostly monounsaturated, doesn't provide the same omega-3 benefits as walnuts or flaxseeds. In fact, they have one of the highest omega-6 to omega-3 ratios of any nut, which can potentially contribute to inflammation if consumed in large quantities. Most Americans already consume far too many omega-6 fatty acids relative to omega-3s, creating an imbalance that some researchers believe contributes to chronic inflammatory conditions, including cardiovascular disease. Finally, like peanuts, macadamias are frequently sold salted, and often as part of chocolate-covered or sweetened products, which adds sodium and sugar to an already calorie-dense food. If you do enjoy macadamias occasionally, opt for the raw, unsalted variety and limit your portion to no more than 10 to 12 nuts at a time. One of my clients, Barbara, who had a particular fondness for macadamias, found that she could satisfy her craving by mixing just 5 or 6 macadamias with a larger portion of walnuts, getting the flavor she loved while still predominantly consuming a nut with proven blood pressure benefits. The third nut that may be problematic for those with high blood pressure is the cashew. This might surprise you, as cashews are often touted as a health food, and indeed they do contain some beneficial nutrients like magnesium and potassium. However, they also present several concerns for people managing hypertension. First, cashews are typically processed with significant amounts of salt and often vegetable oils, which can contribute to inflammation and water retention. Second, even unsalted cashews naturally contain more sodium than many other nuts, with about 3 to 5 milligrams per ounce, compared to less than 1 milligram in almonds. While this doesn't sound like much, it adds up when consumed regularly or in larger portions. Third, cashews have a relatively high carbohydrate content compared to other nuts, with about 8 grams per ounce, almost twice that of walnuts. For people with insulin resistance, which often accompanies hypertension as part of metabolic syndrome, these extra carbs can contribute to blood sugar fluctuations that indirectly affect blood pressure. Finally, cashews are among the most addictive nuts in terms of taste and texture, making portion control particularly challenging. I've had numerous clients report that they find it nearly impossible to stop at a single serving of cashews, unlike walnuts or almonds, which tend to be more satiating. If you do enjoy cashews occasionally, I recommend mixing a small amount with less palatable but more beneficial nuts, like walnuts, or using cashew butter very sparingly, about 1 teaspoon, as a flavor enhancer for otherwise heart-healthy meals. Emily, a client with persistent high blood pressure, found that replacing her daily handful of cashews with a walnut flaxseed mix resulted in a gradual 6-point reduction in her systolic pressure over 3 months, with no other dietary changes. The fourth nut to be wary of is not actually a true nut at all, but it's commonly grouped with nuts in the American diet: the coconut. Whether consumed as chunks, flakes, or processed into coconut oil, this tropical nut presents significant concerns for those managing hypertension. The primary issue is coconut's unusually high saturated fat content, with over 90% of its calories coming from saturated fat. While there's ongoing debate about different types of saturated fats and their cardiovascular impacts, the overwhelming consensus from major health organizations, including the American Heart Association, continues to be that replacing saturated fats with unsaturated fats helps reduce blood pressure and cardiovascular risk. A systematic review of 16 clinical trials found that coconut oil consumption raised LDL cholesterol, the bad cholesterol, compared to non-tropical vegetable oils. Elevated LDL contributes to arterial plaque formation, narrowing blood vessels, and raising blood pressure over time. Additionally, coconut products are frequently highly processed and combined with sugar and sodium. Coconut flakes, for instance, often contain added sugar that can contribute to inflammation and weight gain, while prepared coconut-based products like coconut shrimp or coconut curry dishes typically contain significant sodium. If you do enjoy coconut flavor, I recommend using very small amounts of unsweetened coconut flakes as a garnish rather than as a main ingredient, and prioritizing cooking oils with proven cardiovascular benefits like olive oil over coconut oil. James, a 59-year-old client who had been liberally using coconut oil in his cooking based on internet claims about its health benefits, saw his blood pressure drop from 155/92 to 138/85 within 6 weeks of switching to olive oil with no other dietary changes. Now that we've covered both the beneficial and potentially harmful nuts for blood pressure management, let's talk about practical ways to incorporate this knowledge into your daily life. One approach that many of my successful clients have adopted is the displacement method rather than the addition method. Instead of simply adding beneficial nuts to your current diet, which could lead to excess calorie consumption, identify the less healthy snacks or ingredients you currently consume and systematically replace them with the blood pressure-friendly nuts we've discussed. For example, if you typically have a bag of chips with lunch, replace it with a small container of mixed walnuts and almonds. If you use breadcrumbs as a coating for baked fish or chicken, try using ground flaxseed instead. These small, consistent swaps create meaningful changes over time without requiring a complete dietary overhaul that might feel overwhelming. Another strategy is to create your own custom nut mix optimized for blood pressure management. I recommend combining 50% walnuts for their omega-3 content, 25% almonds for their magnesium and vitamin E, 15% unsalted pistachios for their potassium and antioxidants, and 10% ground flaxseed for additional omega-3s and fiber. This mix can be prepared once a week and portioned into small containers or silicone bags for grab-and-go snacking that supports your cardiovascular health. For those who find plain nuts unappetizing, consider lightly toasting your mix with blood pressure-friendly spices like turmeric, which contains curcumin, a compound with well-documented anti-inflammatory and antioxidant properties. Just be sure to toast at lower temperatures, around 300 degrees Fahrenheit, to preserve the delicate omega-3 fatty acids in the walnuts and flax seeds. It's also worth mentioning that the timing of nut consumption can impact their effectiveness for blood pressure management. Research suggests that consuming nuts as part of a meal helps blunt the post-meal blood pressure rise that occurs naturally as blood is diverted to your digestive system. This is particularly beneficial for older adults who tend to experience more significant blood pressure fluctuations after eating. Try adding a tablespoon of ground flaxseed to your morning oatmeal, a small handful of walnuts to your lunchtime salad, and a few almonds as part of your afternoon snack to help stabilize blood pressure throughout the day.
For those concerned about the cost of regularly incorporating nuts into their diet, there are several practical approaches to make this strategy more affordable. Buying nuts in bulk, particularly from membership warehouse stores, can reduce the per-ounce cost significantly. Storing larger quantities properly is key, however, as the oils in nuts can go rancid if exposed to heat, light, or air for extended periods. I recommend keeping a 1-week supply in an airtight container in your pantry and storing the rest in the freezer, where they'll maintain their freshness for up to a year. Another cost-saving approach is to prioritize walnuts and flaxseeds, which offer the most robust blood pressure benefits, and use smaller amounts of the more expensive nuts like pistachios as flavor enhancers rather than as the base of your mix. Additionally, consider including other seeds with similar nutritional profiles but lower price points, such as sunflower seeds, which provide magnesium and potassium that support healthy blood pressure. It's also important to address the concern about nut allergies, which affect a significant portion of the population. If you have a tree nut allergy, focus on seeds that offer similar cardiovascular benefits, such as pumpkin seeds, rich in magnesium, sunflower seeds, high in vitamin E, or chia seeds, excellent source of omega-3s and fiber. These can be incorporated into your diet using the same strategies we've discussed for nuts, providing many of the same blood pressure-lowering benefits without the allergen risks. If you're allergic specifically to peanuts but can tolerate tree nuts, you're in luck, as the most beneficial nuts for blood pressure, walnuts, almonds, and pistachios, are all tree nuts rather than legumes like peanuts. As we wrap up this discussion on nuts and blood pressure, I want to emphasize that these dietary changes are just one component of a comprehensive approach to hypertension management. While incorporating the right nuts can significantly impact your numbers, they work best as part of a broader lifestyle approach that includes regular physical activity, stress management, adequate sleep, and appropriate medication if prescribed by your healthcare provider. The beauty of the nut strategy is that it's an easy entry point into healthier eating that can motivate further positive changes. Many of my clients report that once they experience the benefits of this simple swap, they become curious about what other dietary adjustments might help, creating a positive cascade of health improvements. Remember that consistency matters more than perfection. Adding a handful of beneficial nuts to your diet most days will have a more positive impact than occasionally consuming a large amount. Start with small, sustainable changes, track your blood pressure regularly to see how your body responds, and communicate openly with your healthcare provider about the dietary changes you're implementing. This collaborative approach ensures you're safely optimizing both natural and medical management strategies for your hypertension. If you've made it this far, you probably know firsthand the daily challenges of living with high blood pressure, the constant medication adjustments, the worry about every salty meal, the feeling that your health is always teetering on the edge of control. I want you to know that you're not walking this path alone. Our channel was created specifically to build a community for people like you who are seeking natural, effective ways to support their cardiovascular health. Each week, we share new research findings, simple recipes that naturally support healthy blood pressure, and answer the questions that doctors often don't have time to address during your brief appointments. If this information resonated with you today, please consider subscribing to our channel and turning on notifications so you never miss our weekly heart health tips. This way, we can walk this health journey together, one small step at a time, with the patience and consistency your heart deserves. I don't promise miracle cures, but I do commit to sharing honest, research-backed information and strategies that have created real results for real people. Take care of yourself, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video where we'll continue our conversation about living well even with hypertension. Your heart appreciates every small act of care you give it today.